My wife dropped the divorce bomb on me right in our own living room. "You can't afford a lawyer to fight me," she said, like it was a fact carved in stone. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You're right." She probably thought that was the end of it, until we showed up in court. She was ready to gloat, but her smile vanished the second the most feared top-dollar divorce lawyer in the state walked in and sat down beside me. He glanced at her and said, "He doesn't need to afford me. I'm his older brother." It all started the Tuesday before. Rachel sat me down and told me she wanted a divorce. There was no emotion behind her words. No sadness, no guilt. Just cold, calculated finality, like someone delivering a boardroom layoff. We were in the same living room we'd spent 8 years pouring ourselves into, turning it from a plain house into a real home. And now she was talking to me like I was just another item on her to-do list. "It's over, Ben," she said, sliding a manila folder across the coffee table. "I've already hired an attorney. These are my terms." I didn't need to open it. I already knew it wasn't going to be good. She didn't hesitate to spell it out either. She wanted the house, my house, partly paid for by my grandfather's down payment. She wanted 70% of the savings we built together. And she expected me to pay spousal support for no less than 5 years. There was no room for discussion. This wasn't an offer, it was a declaration. A complete surrender on my part. When she was done, she leaned back like a smug CEO closing a deal, that arrogant smirk plastered across her face. "And I don't want to fight about this, Ben," she added, her voice laced with fake sympathy. "Let's be honest, you're a high school woodshop teacher. You earn a decent living, sure, but not enough for a real lawyer. My attorney will bury you in paperwork before you even get a chance to speak in court. The smarter for you to just agree and move on." I sat there staring at the woman I once loved, this person I'd built a life with, and all I could feel was this cold emptiness settling in my chest. She didn't just want to leave me. She wanted to crush me. She saw me as weak, something to be stepped over and forgotten. She thought her biggest weapon was the fact that I couldn't fight back. So I let the silence stretch, and then I gave her exactly what she was waiting for. I looked at her, kept my face blank, and said, "You're right." Her reaction was instant. She lit up. In her mind, she'd already won. The quiet, practical teacher was rolling over, just like she expected. She stood up, smoothed her skirt like she was brushing me off and said, "Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable. You'll get the official papers next week." Then she turned and walked out like it was all settled. Here's what Rachel did know. She knew I didn't have piles of cash laying around. She knew my paycheck came from a public school. And she also knew I had an older brother, Derek. What she figured, what she was counting on, was that Derek and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. Now, Derek isn't a teacher. He's a legal shark. Hands down, the most ruthless, high-priced divorce attorney in the entire state. The kind of guy whose name makes other lawyers squirm. But as far as Rachel knew, he was out of the picture. We'd fallen out after our parents passed away. The fight was over the house we grew up in. I wanted to hold on to it, keep it in the family, maybe use it to bring everyone together down the road. I've always been a sentimental kind of guy. Derek, ever the realist, wanted to sell it, split the money, and move on. That disagreement turned into a shouting match that ended with us both going our separate ways. Angry, stubborn, and silent. We hadn't spoken since. Rachel had seen the tail end of that fallout. She figured Derek was gone from my life for good. She thought the one person who could help me was a dead end. She thought wrong. For the next 3 days, I was in a bad place. She wasn't lying. I didn't have the money to go up against her in court. The thought of losing my home, our savings, everything I'd spent years building, was eating me alive. Then came day 4. I hit rock bottom. And once you're there, the only direction left is up. I swallowed every last ounce of pride I had. Pride that had kept Derek and me from talking for 5 long years, and I found his private number. My hand was shaking when I called. I half expected a machine or some sharp-tongued assistant to answer. But after 2 rings, I heard that deep, familiar voice. "Hello, Derek?" I said, my voice sounding small and strange in my own ears. "It's Ben." There was a long pause. For a second, I thought he was going to hang up. Then he said, "Ben me." That old nickname hit like a punch to the gut after all this time. What's going on? And that's when I let it all spill. I told him everything. Rachel's demands, her cold attitude, the lawyer, the way she talked to me like I was dirt. And then I told him the last thing she said to me. You can't afford a lawyer to fight me. The silence on the other end got heavy. Then he spoke again, but his tone had changed. Gone was the surprise. What replaced it was something I hadn't heard in years. It was the voice of a big brother stepping into the ring. Steel in his words. No hesitation. She said what? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. I repeated it. There was a pause. Then he said, all right, when's the first court date? Next Tuesday. Downtown courthouse. I'll make room in my schedule, he said. Don't talk to her. Don't talk to her lawyer. Don't sign a damn thing. Just show up Tuesday. I'll be there. And with that, we hung up. I sat there, my heart pounding with a strange mix of panic and something even scarier. Hope. Rachel thought she had me cornered. She had no clue she'd just handed me the equivalent of a nuclear warhead. She was about to find out what family really means. Up close and personal. Update 1. The morning of our first court hearing was gray and miserable, with a steady rain that matched the weight in my chest. Somehow it felt fitting. I walked into the courthouse by myself, playing the part she expected, the worn-out husband with nothing left in the tank. I wore my only decent suit, the one I keep in the back of the closet for weddings and funerals. Honestly, it felt like this day was a little bit of both. The courtroom itself was cold and impersonal. That strange courthouse smell hit me, something between old documents and nerves. Rachel was already there, seated at the plaintiff's table. She looked stunning. Sharp navy power suit, not a hair out of place. Confident, composed, like a CEO ready to close a hostile takeover. Beside her was her lawyer, a smug guy probably in his 50s, looking way too pleased with himself. They were whispering and chuckling like they were already celebrating. When Rachel saw me, her smile flickered just a little. For a second, I think she expected me to show up completely broken. I didn't flinch. I just looked her in the eye, kept my face unreadable, and took my seat at the defendant's table. I set my old, worn-out briefcase down and waited. Her lawyer strolled over, wearing that same condescending smirk. Mr. Carter, he said, voice dripping with smugness. Glad you made it. I assume you've had a chance to look over my client's very generous proposal. If you're ready to sign, we can make this quick and painless. I looked up at him and answered calmly, I'm waiting for my attorney. He actually laughed out loud. Your attorney? Good luck with that. No need to drag this out. Then he turned and strutted back to his table. The bailiff called the room to order and the judge, a tough-looking woman with tired eyes, entered and took her seat. She scanned the docket and spoke. Miller versus Miller, she said. Are both parties present and represented? Rachel's lawyer jumped up. Yes, Your Honor. Martin Rhodes, representing Mrs. Rachel Carter. The judge turned to me. I opened my mouth, but before I could say a word, the double doors at the back of the courtroom swung open with a loud, dramatic thud. Everyone turned to see who it was. And there he was, my brother, Derek Lawson. He didn't just walk in. He arrived. That man was wearing what I can only describe as a tailored suit of war. Dark, expensive, and somehow more intimidating than armor. He moved like a predator, calm, controlled, and dangerous. His briefcase swung at his side, gleaming like it was forged from polished steel. People in the courtroom started whispering. You could feel it, everyone recognized him. But he didn't look at them. His eyes locked on mine. He walked straight over, placed a steady hand on my shoulder, gave it a reassuring squeeze, and sat down beside me. The sound of his briefcase hitting the table, click, cut through the silence like a gavel. It was the sound of the tide turning. I glanced over at Rachel. Her face was drained of all that smug confidence. Her mouth hung slightly open. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. She looked like someone had just rolled a ghost into the room and seated it next to her ex. And her lawyer? He looked like he was about to throw up. That smirk he wore earlier? Gone. His face turned pale as chalk. He knew exactly who my brother was. Derek leaned in toward me, his voice low and calm. Sorry I'm late, little brother, he said with a half smile. Traffic was murder. Then he sat up straight, all business. He looked directly at the judge and said in that deep, commanding voice of his, Derek Lawson, Your Honor. Representing the defendant, Mr. Ben Carter. The judge's eyebrows shot up. She recognized the name. Everyone in that courtroom did. Derek turned slowly to face Rachel and her trembling lawyer. He gave them a cold smile, a predator's grin. "My apologies for the delay," he said, voice smooth and razor-sharp with sarcasm. Then he turned back to Rachel and delivered the line that absolutely shattered her world. "He doesn't have to afford me. I'm his older brother." And just like that, the game flipped. She thought she was walking into a clean, easy win. What she walked into was an ambush. Derek popped open his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of files. That's when the demolition started. He didn't ease into it either. He immediately tore into all her demands, calling them predatory and filed in bad faith. He let it be known that we'd be counterfiling hard. He announced that we were requesting a full forensic audit. Every dime, every transaction, every cent she touched over the last 3 years. Oh, and we'd be demanding she pay my legal fees too. Rachel's lawyer? The man was frozen, stammering. He looked like a fish suddenly aware it was swimming with a shark. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. The battle had ended before the first shot was even fired. Update 2. The next 2 months were a full-on legal assault. Derek doesn't just handle cases. He launches campaigns. Rachel and her attorney thought they were going to steamroll me. What they got instead was a hurricane wrapped in a 3-piece suit. Derek's first move? A discovery motion that was brutal in scope and beautiful in design. It wasn't a polite request. It was a legally mandated demand for every single financial record Rachel had touched in the last 5 years: bank accounts, credit cards, business expenses, Venmo history, everything down to the penny. Her lawyer tried to shut it all down. He filed a motion claiming Derek's demands were excessive, overly broad and meant to harass. The judge took one look at the explanation Derek had submitted and didn't even flinch. She granted our motion completely. Legally, Rachel now had to turn over every document, every transaction. No hiding. She thought she was slick, thought she'd covered her tracks. What she didn't realize was that my brother had a team of forensic accountants on speed dial, and this kind of puzzle was their idea of a good time. While Rachel was drowning in paperwork and scrambling to clean up the mess, Derek turned up the heat. He scheduled a round of depositions. Not just with Rachel, but with people close to her, friends, family, coworkers. His approach was methodical and merciless. He was squeezing the truth from every corner of her life. And then came the breakthrough. It happened during the deposition of Rachel's best friend, a woman named Jenna. Fiercely loyal, sure, but she was no match for Derek. He came in calm, respectful, even charming, but underneath, the man was surgical. For 3 straight hours, he questioned her about Rachel's spending, her work trips, and how things really were in our marriage. And then, with no warning, he dropped the bomb. "Miss Whitmore?" Derek asked, flipping through a stack of files. "Can you tell me about Mr. Logan Pierce?" Jenna flinched. I saw it. She didn't expect that name to come up, and truth be told, neither did I. I'd never heard it before. But Derek waited. She tried to act clueless, but then he laid out the evidence. Credit card statements from an account I didn't even know existed. A hidden card tied to our joint savings. He pointed to charges, luxury hotels in wine country, pricey dinners, fine jewelry. "These dates align with work conferences Miss Miller supposedly attended," Derek said. "Her employer has confirmed there were no conferences scheduled during that time. You weren't with her. So I'll ask you again, who is Logan Pierce?" And just like that, Jenna cracked. With a shaky voice, under oath, she told the truth. Logan Pierce was the man Rachel had been cheating on me with for a year and a half. A wealthy real estate developer she'd met at her old job. Suddenly, everything made sense. The secrecy, the financial demands, her overconfidence. She wasn't just leaving me. She was trading up. She was bleeding our marriage dry to bankroll her next chapter with this other man. Her whole plan was to use my money to start a new life with him. And then we got to David's deposition. He strolled in with a smug look, like he thought he was bulletproof. But under Derek's questions, that arrogance peeled away fast. He admitted to the affair. Admitted they'd planned the divorce together. Even admitted that the demands, her trying to take the house, the spousal support, were his idea. He told her I'd be too broke and too soft to fight back. They both thought I'd roll over and let them have it all. They misjudged me. They really misjudged my brother. Those depositions blew Rachel's case to pieces. She'd lied in her original filings, claiming she'd been faithful. She'd hidden money. She'd flat out committed perjury. At that point, her lawyer saw the writing on the wall and called Derek. He practically begged to settle. He told Derek that Rachel was willing to drop every demand and just walk away. Derek didn't even hesitate. "No," he said. "Walking away is a privilege she hasn't earned. We're not settling. We're going to court, and we're going to burn her to the ground." She wanted a war. Now she had one. Final update. It's been 6 months since I stepped into that courtroom, feeling like everything was falling apart. Turns out I didn't lose anything that mattered. In fact, I gained more than I ever expected. By the time our final court date arrived, the outcome was already set in stone. The mountain of evidence, those depositions, the forensic reports, proof of her affair and financial fraud, left Rachel with no wiggle room. She had no choice but to surrender. Her lawyer, who looked like he hadn't slept in days, told her flat out, "Take whatever deal we offer or face total ruin." And Derek? He didn't hold back. Rachel walked away not just empty-handed, but in the red. She gave up all claims to the house. Her request for spousal support? Dismissed with prejudice, meaning she couldn't even try again. And because Derek proved she'd spent over $60,000 of marital funds on her affair, hotels, gifts, romantic trips, the judge ordered that full amount to be subtracted from her portion of our savings and returned to me. So yeah, she didn't just lose. She paid for the privilege. But her legal loss wasn't even the worst part for her. Her lover, David King? He dumped her almost immediately. The second things got messy, he vanished. Guess he liked her more when she was winning. Her friends? Many of them had been forced to testify under oath and watched her lies unravel in real time. They pulled away too. She lost everything. Her fiancé, her home, her savings, her affair, her image. All of it gone in one spectacular collapse. And all because she underestimated the quiet man she married. But here's what really matters. A few weeks after the dust settled, I got a call from Derek. "Meet me at the old house," he said. So I drove out to the home we grew up in, the house that had once torn us apart. I found him sitting on the porch steps, like no time had passed at all. We didn't talk about court or Rachel or revenge. We talked about Dad's ridiculous fishing stories, Mom's unbeatable apple pie, being kids again, being brothers. And then, after a long silence, Derek looked over at me and said something I'll never forget. "I was wrong, Benmi," he said. "I was so focused on the money on the property that I forgot what this place really was. It's home." I nodded. "I was wrong too," I told him. "I was so stuck in the past. I couldn't see there might be a new future for this place. So we didn't sell it. We kept it together. These days we spend our weekends there, fixing the porch, repainting the walls, bringing it back to life. It's not a monument to the past anymore. It's a promise, a future, a gathering place for the people who matter." And working beside my brother, sweat on our brows and tools in hand, has healed a part of me I thought would stay broken forever. The last thing Rachel said to me before she walked out was that I couldn't afford a lawyer. But her greed, her arrogance, and her belief that I was weak, that was the very thing that pushed me to make the call that changed everything. She tried to isolate me. Instead, she brought my brother back into my life. She thought she was leaving me with nothing. But standing here now, in a home that's truly mine, with my brother beside me and peace in my heart, I finally see the truth. I have everything.